So I'm from a company called Digital Root. So unlike Accenture, everyone knows Accenture. So Digital Root, it may not ring a bell. So let me explain a little bit how we actually fit into the SAP world. We are basically known as a solution extension partner. Or in short, we call ourselves Solex partners. So what that actually means is SAP actually brings in digital route technology into their solution suite, into their landscape as part of the end-to-end offering. So it actually helps them extend their solution offer to provide a more, and to complement and provide a more complete end-to-end offering. So that's where we are. That's what we actually bring along into the SAP world. So as a partner, so my name is Jon Tan. I'm from Digital Route. I'm actually based out of Singapore. So I will not spend too much time introducing myself because it's a very stressful time. I'm standing between you and dinner at the moment, so I'll do this very quickly. So at Digital Route, we unlock the value of data. Okay, so this data is very interesting. So this data, we're actually specifically looking at targeting usage data. So what is usage data? Usage data is a type of data that explains, that captures information about your consumers, your customers. What service have they used? How much have they used? All this information about maybe the time of the day that the person has used it. Maybe you want to charge it peak or off-peak, different rates. Is it time of the week? Is it a weekday? Is it a weekend? All this information about how that service that your company is providing, how is it being consumed? How is it being used? These are usage data. And why is that important? Because I think as somebody from Tata mentioned before, we're going Uberization, right? A lot of models are going to subscription-based business. We are no longer just selling an SKU. So a lot of businesses are actually transforming and moving into a subscription world. And subscription alone is not sufficient. So studies have shown that a mixture of, okay, when I talk about subscription, we're talking about recurring fees. Every month I pay a fixed fee. So studies have shown that subscription standalone will make your business grow, but if you were to package in a usage component together with subscription, your business is going to grow much more than just purely recurring. So that's where we come in, processing usage data. And who are we? We have 20 years of experience in managing usage data. Why 20 years? We actually come from the telco world. If you imagine, think about telcos as being pioneers. These are the guys who started charging you on a phone call. How long was your phone call? How many SMS did you send? How much data, how much gigabyte do you consume? So telcos are actually the pioneers when it comes to usage. And we're actually bringing in that experience of how to manage this usage data to make sure that it is then ready for you to actually put a price tag on it so that you can actually invoice and charge the customer. So that's where we are. And we have over 400 deployments worldwide. And one of our biggest customers is actually right here in India. It's actually Jio Reliance. So Jio Reliance is about 360 million subscribers at the moment. And our platform is basically processing all the usage data from Jio Reliance customer base. And lastly, just to tell you, from a telco background perspective, we have one particular customer who is actually processing, using our platform to process 400 billion transactions on a daily basis. All right, so this is where we are, or rather this is who we are, Digital Route. Okay, so what I want to share with you, why am I talking about usage? Why am I talking about usage? I want to share with you a customer reference. In this case, it's actually Alperia. Alperia is basically a utilities company in Italy. So the gentleman you see on screen right here is Mr. Luca Seriani. He's basically the Chief Digital and Technology Officer of Alperia Group. And I have basically, I'm going to share some information that he spoke about. He actually participated in an SAP event just last year. It's called Billing and Revenue Innovation Management Live 2021. So just last year, he shared how his company's journey, how they actually moved into an EV charging. Again, Alperia, as a utilities company, EV charging is a new business model for them. Okay, so in this, there's actually a QR code for the video if you want that. So he actually shares how the company moves into a journey of enabling a new business of EV charging. All right, so one thing that I'll quote at the bottom right here is basically a quote from that presentation. So moving into a usage world is something new to them, to Alperia. Sure, they are doing utilities, but they're reading meters on a monthly basis. Every month there's one usage. all right? But moving into the EV world, it's a completely different world for them. So they realize that you should expect changes in operation activities. You should also expect impact on the infrastructure. And one of the reasons he quoted here, just one of the reasons is because the amount of data that will be coming in. Imagine every time a subscriber plugs in, and then when he pulls out the plug, it generates a transaction. That is the usage that we're talking about. So the business they actually roll out, it's a sub-brand called Neogy. It's based out of Italy. So it's a very busy slide, but just let's focus here on the bottom left, if you can see, maybe in the way. So just want to share, moving into the EV world, what are the type of services they actually brought to the table for the customers. Okay, so they are, Chaitil mentioned earlier on, there are actually two main players in the ecosystem. They're small, but two main players. One is the CPO, charging point operator, as well as the e-mobility service provider. So for them, Neogy is basically an e-mobility service provider, as well as a charging point operator. So they are providing charging service on their own charging stations. Okay, they are at the same time, from home charging perspective, they are selling charging points so that and installing it in homes so that people can actually charge at home. Other things, very importantly, roaming services. So if you're not familiar, roaming, why is roaming coming out in the EV world? All right, so I'll talk a little bit about that. So we're more familiar about roaming in telco, where when I move to a different country, when I travel to a different country, I connect to someone else's network. So that's roaming maybe to you. So how does it work in an EV charging world? So I'll talk about that a little bit in the next slide. So very straightforward business goals that they have. They want to be able to roll out commercial offers, not only for B2C, business to consumers, also for the B2B market as well. They want automation in their system. Automation in terms of fulfillment. When a subscriber comes in, signs up, what other downstream system do I need to inform about this? And also from a collection perspective, how am I to automate the collection of this usage data we spoke about? Okay, so they want to drive for as much automation as possible. So again, they want to be able to roll out roaming services. And lastly, because there's roaming, one of the business requirements is basically partner settlement. All right, so these are the few things. Don't really be bothered about this, but just the two products that the Neogy actually deployed is basically SAP BRIM. BRIM is actually in the previous slide. It's Billing and Revenue Innovation Management. So that's called BRIM in short. So they acquired this, as well as SAP Convergent Mediation by Digital Root. So this is basically the product from my company that we provide to SAP to complete the end-to-end solution. What type of businesses can you actually do? How can you actually make money out of EV charging? So I have 4 examples that I've taken from Neogy. So the first is straightforward, charging. You provide an e-mobility service. You want to allow your customers to basically charge the vehicle. So to charge a vehicle, right now, the market trend right now is still usage-based. Usage-based meaning you could be charged based on how long you actually plug in, or you could be charged based on the actual power consumed while you're charging. So these are all consumption-based driven. These are all usage-driven. It's not a fixed fee throughout the month, all right? So it's usage-based driven. Again, right now, the trend is still usage-driven. Maybe, I don't know, going forward, it could be a flat fee of some sort, all right? And then, of course, how do you actually collect the money? You produce a monthly invoice. So here they are going by maybe more familiar with postpaid model. That means I use the service, then I get invoiced. But of course, going forward, they can also go in the prepaid model, where the customer basically provides the money first, and then you deplete the credit along the way. So very basic model here. You provide an e-mobility service. You want to allow the customers to charge. How do you actually charge it? By usage. The second is basically we talk about installing, selling and installing the chargers at home. So here, they have chosen to charge on a monthly flat fee. That means once I install it, I charge you on a monthly fee, regardless of how much you use, because you're actually consuming, the customer is consuming his own electricity. It's not consuming Neogy's electricity. So they are already being billed as utilities bill. So, but of course, they've chosen to go for a flat fee, but it does not mean that you cannot go with a usage. You could be actually charging for how many times you actually use the equipment and so on. But again, they've chosen to go with flat fee with no usage-based rating. So the third type of model is, here we go, roaming. So what is roaming in EV? So the concept is very similar to mobile. So being a NeoG, or rather, NeoG is providing the charging points, but there are a lot of other players. So again, NeoG is a CPO plus MSP. So there are two in one. But there are players out there who are just mobility service providers. So how do the customers actually charge? So they actually have to come to NeoG's charging point, plug in and charge on NeoG. But they are not NeoG's customers. Okay, so that's roaming. That's someone else's customer coming into NeoG network to charge. So you must have a way to allow, first of all, to allow the charging. And again, current market trend, you're charging by usage. So the usage price could be different from your own NeoG's own customer. It could be more expensive, all right? Or maybe it's not so complex. Here, for NeoG's customer, maybe you have peak, off-peak, weekdays, weekends. Here, it could be a flat, per minute charge or per hour charge, And it could be higher charge, of course, because it's not your customer. And this is where we talk about roaming. Then you must be able to do a settlement, partner settlement. You must be able to charge that MSP. You don't own that customer. The MSP owns the customer. So how do you actually, collect the money back? You actually have to invoice the MSP as a B2B business partner. All right, so that's another model you should think about, allowing roaming to happen. Of course, this goes two ways. Here it actually says, the customers, NeoG's customers can actually go and plug in to someone else's charging points. Let's say you're traveling to a state that doesn't have a NeoG network. So what can you do? You need to charge. So NeoG will allow its customers to basically charge on someone else's charging points. And again, roaming applies for them, so there's settlement between the two parties. So roaming can happen both ways. Lastly, profit sharing. Something very interesting. So instead of acquiring all the charging point property by themselves, buying, paying for all the properties, what about, let's think about profit sharing. Bring in partners, real estate players that owns the establishment, owns the plot of land, the parking spaces and lots, all right? Why not do a profit sharing with them? Talk to them, one example, IKEA. They have plenty of parking. So what if NeoG brings their charging point to IKEA, installs it there? So what's the benefit to IKEA allowing you to install that? Then the profit sharing model comes in nicely. So the benefit for IKEA is a model that you can think about. And every customer that charges at IKEA's charging point, you can actually have a cut, a revenue share, give a little bit of that profit to IKEA. So that basically helps also because optimizing the acquisition of all the charging points location. So this is a very nice model that they came up with. So something that you should also consider if you're into this business. So overall, what I want to share with you is we have to rethink about the entire quote to cash or order to cash, depending on where you actually want to start the business. So quote to cash or order to cash from the point where a subscriber signs up to the point that you can actually collect the money. So I will not go through all this entire thing, but just want to point out that basically usage collection is one of the business process, and that's where our product actually sits. So what you want to actually think about is, from the start, you want to have a quote to cash solution that offers you a way to create and design services, service-based business. That's, for example, subscription-based. Are you able to do recurring, one-time fees, consumption-based? You need a system to be able to support all this. You must have a system that actually allows you to charge all this, and also customer focus, be able to not only AP, rather, because there's settlement between partners, roaming. You need a system to be able to do that, B2B, B2C on a single platform. And that's where SAP's BRIM solution actually contributed to NeoG's business model. So my last slide, very quickly, applicable cross industries. So what I just spoke about the model, about NeoG bringing, the billing system, going into usage and all that, is not limited only to EV charging. It applies, all the way from the private sector all the way down to public sectors. Any industries, if they are going into a transformation of offering Uberized services, Uberized business model, offering it differently. You want to offer, instead of selling a product, now I want to sell a service. What's the best way right now? Is basically on subscription model. You go with a subscription model, it's more usership rather than ownership. And then you want to, again, as I mentioned earlier on, you want to bring in the component of usage. Because studies have shown that together with that recurring fees, with usage, that's going to make the business grow much more and much faster. All right, so that's all I have.